the virus and its possible mutations will enable us to, number one, implement a more responsive vaccination program, and number two, to execute other existing health interventions, and number three, to prepare for future pandemics. A total of 362 million pesos will be allocated for this initiative. On a final note, I would also like to report that the President has approved the acquisition of 15 Black Hawk helicopters as part of plans to slowly address the growing heli-lift deficiency of our armed forces, and number two, decommission all UE helicopters. Maalala niyo po na 7 sa ating mga mahal na sundalo ay pumanaw nung may nag-crash landing na isang UE helicopter sa Bukidnon noong January 16. This was the 4th such crash since July of last year. And the President wants to end all these tragic deaths. Our servicemen and their families deserve better. Itong mga UE na gamit ng PAS, mas matanda pa sa akin. In fact, the first UE took flight 64 years ago. So kung tao ito, talagang due na po for retirement. Kailangan na rin natin talaga. We have a heli-lift capability need of 55 helicopters to cover over 7,000 islands with a total land area of 300,000 square kilometers. The Department of National Defense in fact says that we actually require a total of 76 helicopters. And while the President initially agreed to acquiring 55 new helicopters, that number has been managed and in fact reduced to 15 owing to the challenges that we currently face. Before I entertain questions, the President and the Cabinet extends our thanks to the Manila Concert Choir for the beautiful prayer that opened the Cabinet meeting yesterday. Sa Manila Concert Choir na nag-present virtually kahapon, maraming salamat po. Sa gitna ng ating mga pinagdadaanan bilang isang bansa, maliban sa panalangin, kailangan natin magtulungan. Thank you. Let's now proceed to the open forum for any questions or clarifications.
Thank you, Cabsec. Okay, sa lahat po ng mga magtatanong sa atin pong Q&A, pwede po kayong magpadala ng inyong katanungan sa Q&A chat box or sa Viber. O pwede rin po kayong magtanong ng live via Zoom. Sumali lang po sa atin pong Zoom meeting room. Ang unang magtatanong, Cabsec, si Pia Ranyada Robles ng Rappler. Pia?
Hello? Hi, Cabsec.
Hi, Pia.
Yes, sir. Sir, just on another note, I was just wanting to ask about the President's position on the military and uniformed personnel pension problem because, sir, sa mga congressional hearings, they pointed out the problem that 800 billion pesos a year for the next 20 years would be necessary to pay off the growing costs of the military pension. So, sir, just want to know if the Cabinet discussed at any point, not even just particularly this meeting, but other meetings, how they would solve this problem. What is the President's stance on how to solve this problem?
Well, hindi siya naging part ng agenda kagabi sa aming cabinet meeting, pero meron pong cluster na in charge po dyan. So meron binuo na cluster to take charge and to discuss the issues and concerns regarding the military pension adjustments, at ito na nga po ay nasa Kongreso at pinag-uusapan doon. So may naka-assign po dyan.
Sir, yung group na yun, did they ever talk about specific ways to address this? Kasi may mga proposals like scrapping indexation or making the age of retirement of military personnel to 60 and imposing mandatory contributions. Which among these proposals is the Cabinet group considering?
Siguro it would be much better to direct the questions to that cluster. I'm not at liberty to discuss also kung ano yung mga napag-usapan na doon. I do know that obviously Congress hearings are open to the public. So kung meron man mga position papers na pinadala mula sa cluster na yan ay napadala na po sa Kongreso. Alam ko even in the previous Congress ito po'y napag-usapan na rin po. So So I think there are also some position papers that were submitted as far as the executive branch is concerned. No? But ultimately, syempre, the legislators, legislators will be the as lawmakers will be the one to finally craft that bill. No? But be that as it may, meron pong naka-assign na grupo that is consistently and constantly liaising or discussing these concerns with Congress. Kasi syempre budgetary requirements, money and budget ang pinag-uusapan dyan. And necessarily because Congress has the power of the purse, kailangan po, ang pag-usapan dyan ang bottom line. Kung magkano yung budget, magkano yung kinakailangan, magkano kakailanganin para sa mga adjustments na ito.
And sir, lastly lang dun sa Black Hawk helicopters, you mentioned that the President gave the green light for 15 new Black Hawk helicopters, but the need is actually over 70. So may we know, sir, what where the 15 number came from? Bakit 15 lang? And what will the cabinet or the military then intend to do with the shortfall, given that you actually need 70 or 55 helicopters in total? What do you aim to do to fill that gap, given that only 15 have been given the green light for acquisition?
Well, syempre, if we had all the money in the world, no, if we had that budget, so syempre we would go for it kasi yun ang kinakailangan, no, ng ating national defense. But because we are faced with the reality nga na may kinakaharap tayong pandemya, and of course the term of the president is only up to 2022, and we have only one remaining budget to be discussed, no, which is the budget for 2022. Given these realities and limitations, syempre we had to temper kung ano yung makakayanan lang po natin. And the realistic number that was discussed was possibly 15. Pero alam niyo po, this number is an indicative number lang po. And it also has a lot to do with the negotiations, syempre na pag-usapan. It's not like as if para hindi parang bumibili tayo ng kotse na nandun lang sa showroom, di ba? Orders have to be made, negotiations have to be made, and the supply agreement has to be made. So all of these things have to be laid out. Kailangan plansyahin ang lahat ng iyan. Pero at the very least, may directive po si Pangulo na we cannot afford 55. Although ang sinasabi nga ng DND is higher than that. But we cannot afford 55, so we are settling with 15. And then hopefully yung next administration, kung sino yung susunod na administrasyon, depende na po sa Pangulo, sa bagong Pangulo, kung ano yung magiging direction niya. But at the very least, we hope to leave the administration and turn it over to the new administration with at least a lesser deficit as far as heli lift capability is concerned.
So target for these 15 is to arrive within the year, or at least within the term of the president, all 15?
Yeah, well, ideally, no, if all things go well, meaning say may support for budget from Congress, maganda yung negotiations natin, then at the very least, no, the order will be placed and the budget will be secured for the 15. Again, it's a directive, marami pang kailangan gawin, at marami pang kailangan pag-usapan, including the budget necessary for 2022. But at least magsisimula na yung negotiations, and hopefully, if that order is placed and finalized by 2022, then hopefully yung delivery will come forthwith. If ever, we don't know if it will come before the President physically steps down, no, by June 30, or baka mamanahin ng bagong Pangulo. Again, it's a lot of things that need to still be discussed and ironed out.
All right. Thank you, Patrick.
Salamat.
Thank you, Pia Ranyada of Rappler. Mula po kay Joseph Morong of GMA7. Doon po sa front, sa lifeliners. Elaboration lang po, Kabsec. May mga lifeliners ba na nabigyan na ng mga notice of disconnection? If there are, paano ang sistema, and sino again ang lifeliners?
Ang lifeliners po, nakaset sa batas po, ang lifeliners ay halimbawa, no, sineset kasi ng ERC yan, pero halimbawa sa isang distribution utility, ang naset na ERC na lifeliners ay yung kumukonsumo ng 100 kilowatt hours and below. So depende po kung gaano kalaki. Tapos from the 100 kilowatt hour and below, halimbawa lang po, naka-category po yan. And sa bawat category, meron pong diskwento na nakukuha yung lifeliner. No? Again, all of these rules are set by the ERC depending on the distribution utility. So that's just an example, no? Para meron lang tayong reference point. At kumbaga, ang instructions ni Pangulo sa panahon ngayon na meron tayong kinakaharap na pandemya ay walang puputulan na lifeliner. Kasi nga, hirap na nga ng buhay at lifeliner nga sila. And number two, based on the computations ng Department of Energy, ay kayang-kaya naman. It's doable. And number three, and more importantly, sa 2021 this year, mid of this year kasi, mag-expire na yung RA 10150. So based on RA 10150, in-extend po yung lifeline rate based on Section 73 of the EPIRA law, in-extend po yung lifeline rate for 10 years from 2011 to 2021. So mag-expire na po yan sa June, or not June, but mid of this year. So kailangan ng congressional action. So there are pending bills now in the House of Representatives and the Senate. But the bills that we're seeing is another 10 years. So meaning to say 2021 to 2031. Ang inaprubuhan po na direktiba ni Pangulo ay ang pakiusap sa Kongreso na i-extend po yan ng 30 years, not 10 years. So ang pakiusap po is from 2021 all the way up to 2051. So another 30 years. Because of this pandemic and because of the computations sa DOE, hindi naman po ito mabigat para sa ating mga distribution utilities. Kayang-kaya naman po.
Sir, follow-up question from Joseph Morong. I'm not sure kung na-catch. Okay, sabi niya, what does the DA think of the threat of a pork holiday?
Siguro let's refer that to Secretary Dar, no? Pero yung ganyang klaseng bagay kasi well, you have to weigh it, no? Is it beneficial? Is it not beneficial to the public, to consumers? Ano bang magiging epekto niyan sa merkado, sa market, to the many players comprising this whole ecosystem, kumbaga. Meron po tayong mga dapat tulungan ng mga magsasaka, meron tayong dapat matulungan ng mga hog raisers, yung mga small producers natin. So it's a whole ecosystem na anything that you do within that whole ecosystem affects. So I would that is my take, but of course we can also ask Secretary William Dar to elaborate even further on the effect that might have, no, in that whole ecosystem.
Additional regarding pa rin po, sir, sa pork, no? Ano yung projected demand for pork?
Siguro ganito, no, we saw the numbers. Ayoko kasi pangunahan itong magiging proseso, no, because the process really is pag-uusapan pa yan ng MAV Advisory Council, pag-uusapan pa yan ng MAV Management Council. So, kumbaga, the decision that was made yesterday was the process to begin. Tingnan yung ano yung supply, current supply, tingnan yung projections, tingnan mo yung ilan ang kinakailangan natin, at yun ang magiging basis for the discussions ng MAV Advisory Council at MAV Management Council. And remember, at the end of the day, we also go to Congress and ask for their help in this regard din po. So, yun po yung proseso, but I think we need to act fast, no, because of the supply requirements that we need for this year, 2021. Yung ASF, which is basically parang ang usapan nga namin doon kagabi was parang ito yung COVID ng baboy, no? ASF is like the COVID of hogs. May kinakaharap tayong COVID, yung sa hogs din, sa hog industry may kinaharap din sila ibang virus, no? Ibang sakit. So nagkaroon talaga tayo ng challenge pagdating sa supply. So yung price ceiling, itong pag-uusap sa MAV, lahat po yan kasama yan sa binubuo na action plan talaga ng Department of Agriculture. But I also have to emphasize that of course government is there to help our local hog suppliers and producers, especially the small ones. So ang priority talaga ng Department of Agriculture really is to help our hog raisers, to help our local producers. Yun po yung number one. Itong gagawin natin, if ever, would be only a temporary solution, no? Temporary way for us to ensure na hindi sisipa yung presyo, hindi magkakaroon ng effect sa ating inflation, sa food prices, at lahat ng mga iba pa mga economic repercussions na maaaring mangyari, no, pag hindi natin nabantayan ito. So it's one way to address this concern, pero marami pa po na nakalinya na mga hakbang ang ginagawa ng Department of Agriculture in this regard.